Hello friends, you're watching the Military Situation Room. In this video, we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous 12 hours. We have lots of very interesting updates. So let's start. Massive strike night of December 23-24 during the previous night, between the 23rd and the 24th of December 2025, the Russians carried out a massive missile and drone attack across entire Ukraine. Ukrainian sources report that during the previous night, the Russians used more than 600 drones. Confirmed strikes power facilities reported hit burst in thermal power plant heavily damaged. Additional reports of attacks on power facilities in Vinnytsia and Kyiv-Melnytsky regions without detailed confirmation. In Cherkasy region, drones hit a power facility in Novhorodka. The Russians carried out a massive drone and missile attack against Ukrainian energy facilities across the entire country. During the previous 12 hours we received lots of videos, but mostly we received videos showing the consequences of these attacks. As of the moment when I started making this video, I didn't have a complete map showing the approximate routes of Russian drones and missiles that were attacking Ukrainian positions and facilities. I believe we will receive this detailed map in the coming hours, and then we will discuss this map in the evening update. We will also discuss additional videos and more details about this massive attack in tonight's coverage. As of now, we know for sure that currently Ukraine is experiencing huge problems with power supply. Most likely in the coming hours we will see partial blackouts across Ukraine. IDA region critical bridge situation. Now let's go to the situation on the ground. First, let's talk about the Odessa region. If you remember, during the previous days, the Russians attacked the settlement of Myogi. More precisely, the Russians were trying to destroy the bridge between the eastern and western banks of the Dniester River. Pro-Ukrainian sources published this video where we can see the consequences of Russian attacks. As you can see, large sections of the bridge were heavily damaged. The Ukrainians managed to establish some barriers to prevent civilian vehicles from reaching the damaged areas. But obviously, this is not a complete repair. The situation here is critical. Furthermore, I would like to remind you that this is not the first situation with a critical bridge since the beginning of the special military operation. We used to see the same thing with the Antonivsky Bridge. This bridge was completely destroyed in 2022. Ukrainians were attacking that bridge with HIMARS missiles, and it took approximately 1 or 2 months before they managed to destroy the bridge completely. So now we can see the same story. The Russians are attacking this bridge with drones, and most likely in the coming days or coming weeks, the bridge will be completely destroyed. This video we received on the 19th of December shows the moment when the Russians just began attacking the bridge. The bridge was damaged, but not as critically as we can see right now according to the latest video. The bridge will most likely be destroyed, and I would like to remind you that according to Ukrainian sources, up to 60% of Ukraine's fuel supply goes exactly through this area. Another video published from the Odessa region shows consequences of Russian attacks on energy facilities and critical infrastructure that took place during previous days. This is not the consequence of the attack during the previous night. The Russians attacked this facility a few days ago, and now we received full video showing the exact situation in this area. This situation continues deteriorating. Zaporizhzhia direction major developments. Now let's discuss the situation on the ground, and first let's talk about the Zaporizhzhia direction. During the previous 12 hours we received lots of very important updates. Tokmak area confirmation first. I would like to talk about the area of Robotyne. During the previous 2 months, the Russians reported that they managed to capture the settlement near Tokmak, but without showing us proof or videos that could confirm this. But today, pro-Ukrainian sources published this video where we can see how Ukrainians were attacking Russian soldiers on the territory of the former prison with FPV drones. This FPV drone attack took place at this exact point. This is probably the first video that confirms that Russians managed to enter the former prison. We discussed this video just to clarify the line of combat contact. Eastern Zaporizhia, Andriivka captured. Now let's talk about the Eastern Zaporizhia direction. During the previous 12 hours, the most important updates came from the Ukrainian side of the Dnipro River. The Russians, as you can see, during the previous 48 hours managed to improve their positions significantly. Furthermore, according to information we have from media sources, the Russians managed to establish complete control over the settlement named Andriivka. This village was captured, and this information was announced today by pro-Russian sources. We haven't adjusted the map yet because this report was published right before we started making this video. That is why we will adjust the map during the day, and in the evening we will discuss everything in detail, the village of Andriivka, and the map that will most likely be published by pro-Ukrainian sources regarding missile and drone attacks that took place during the previous 12 hours. Pokrovsk direction Ukrainian counterattack. Now let's move further and discuss the situation in the area of the city of Pokrovsk. As you can see, the map has been adjusted. We adjusted the map because indeed, the Ukrainians during the previous 72 hours carried out a counteroffensive operation in this direction with the purpose to enter the northwestern part of the city of Pokrovsk, to dig in deeper, and to create a tactical victory. In this video we can see how Russians were attacking an abandoned Ukrainian tank. The sources are saying that this is the Australian Abrams tank that was destroyed. This episode took place at this exact point. The sources are saying that Ukrainians, using a significant number of vehicles, managed to break through Russian defense along the M30 road to enter the northwestern part and to land infantry. Most likely in the coming days and coming hours, the Ukrainians will repeat their attempts to get additional reinforcements and additional forces on the territory of the city of Pokrovsk. The Russians see the situation, and of course, the Russians are bombing and attacking positions along the railways that Ukrainians use for offensive purposes. Furthermore, according to pro-Russian sources, during the previous 12 hours, the Russians managed to improve their positions on the territory of the settlement of Shevchenko. This information was confirmed by pro-Russian sources. Dachny direction armored offensive. Now let's discuss the situation in the Dachny direction. This is another area with an offensive operation, but this time the offensive operation was carried out by the armored forces of the Russian Federation. In this video, we can see a huge convoy with dozens of vehicles that Russians used for offensive purposes. But as you can see, Russian vehicles were ambushed and most likely damaged or even destroyed with drone attacks. This offensive operation took place in the area of this stronghold. Based on this video, we have adjusted the map because we believe that Russians managed to capture this stronghold, to land infantry, and to take control of this territory. Most likely the battle for the settlement of Zatyshin has begun. Kostiantynivka direction multi-axis attack. Now let's move further and discuss the situation in the Kostiantynivka direction, where another offensive operation was launched by Russians. According to information we have from media sources, the Russians during the previous 72 hours were trying to enter the settlement of Stepanivka from the southwest. We came to this conclusion based on this video. Here we can see the same story, dozens of vehicles of the armed forces of the Russian Federation heading towards the settlement of Stepanivka with infantry. We can see how Ukrainians were trying to stop and slow down Russian forces. As a result of this attack, we don't know the exact results, but one thing is clear: Russians managed to improve their positions. The Russians managed to bring infantry in, the infantry landed and most likely managed to dig in deeper. These are the changes on the ground between the dates. This is the end of the 22nd, this is the beginning of the 23rd, and we believe that most likely this stronghold was also captured by Russians. Most likely the clashes are taking place currently in the southwestern part of the settlement of Stepanivka. Furthermore, the Russians launched their offensive operation in the area of the village of Borislav from the settlement of Bilozerka. This information was confirmed by pro-Russian sources and by neutral mappers. Now we can see that Russians, as a result of this offensive and this series of offensive operations, are trying to establish control over everything located around the settlement of Borislav. Russians are trying to maintain the lines, to shorten the distances, and to establish complete control over the northern and southern shores of the Kamiansk Reservoir. From these positions, most likely Russians will try to advance further in the northern direction to attack the city of Kostiantinivka from behind Slavyansk direction. Critical situation. Now let's talk about the Slavyansk direction. During the previous 12 hours, additional changes were recorded. These are the changes between the dates. This is the situation by the end of the 20th of December. This is the moment when pro-Ukrainian sources confirmed that the city of Siversk was captured by the armed forces of the Russian Federation. Starting from this moment, the map began adjusting further and further in the western direction. These are the changes, and the changes are very significant. These changes are telling us that Ukrainians are not holding their lines and that Ukrainians are retreating towards the settlement of Rehorodok. Ukrainians will try to slow down the Russians on the line between Luch and Rehorodok with the purpose not to allow the Russians to capture the Slavyansk power plant. Because if Russians take the power plant under complete control, we will see a complete blackout situation for the cities of Slavyansk and Kramatorsk, which will lead to the situation when the population of these two cities would be forced to evacuate themselves from this area towards safer territory. This is the situation. The Russians are shortening the distance, and the Russians are advancing pretty fast. Kursk direction operations stalled. The Kursk direction, we haven't received anything from this area, and this is probably the biggest piece of news. I would like to remind you that at the beginning of December, the Ukrainians launched their major counteroffensive operation in this direction before talks in Berlin and Miami, with just one purpose: to gain stronger negotiating cards before the negotiation process. But we see that it's already the second day in a row when we haven't received significant updates. We are not saying that Ukrainians stopped their counteroffensive operation, but speaking honestly, I believe this is the situation due to the critical situation in the Sumy direction and the not good situation in the Zaporizhia direction. Ukrainians most likely either stopped their Kursk counteroffensive operation, or they decided to slow themselves down because they don't have enough forces to finish the battle for the Western Bank. This is exactly what the Russians are waiting for. As soon as they realize that Ukrainians have no forces in reserve to continue the counteroffensive operation, the Russians will strike back. Kharkiv direction, northern advance. Now let's talk about the Kharkiv direction. This morning, the group of forces north confirmed that the settlement named Priyupka was captured by the armed forces of the Russian Federation. These are the changes on the ground between the dates. This is the end of the 20th of December. This is the 21st of December. This is the 22nd, when the Russians reported control over the settlement of Vilka, and this is the beginning of the 24th. The Russians improved their positions around Pilipivka. Now the Russians managed to cross the Siversky Donets River, and most likely now they will continue the offensive operation flowing in the southern direction along the eastern bank through this huge forest until they reach the Pechenihi Reservoir. From these positions they will try to attack the settlement of Balaklia. They will try to outflank this dense network of fortifications and basically attack Ukrainian positions in this area from behind. The Kharkiv offensive operation is also intensifying. The situation is very difficult for the armed forces of Ukraine during this period of time. Ukrainians are trying to counterattack, and today we received reports that Ukrainians attacked an oil refinery in the area of the settlement of Bryansk. They're trying to do everything they can with the purpose to gain stronger negotiating cards, but it seems the situation is too difficult right now. And that's it for this video. The Military Situation Room reminds we analyze violence in the world to understand it better. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to the channel, put your likes, and have a good day.